Moving on to algae and kind of where we are in our algal populations for this time. Here's the graphic. We're at that point in the fall where we see the sort of last spike in algal biomass. The algal biomass right now is high. It's extremely high. It's as high as you'll see it from year to year. Overall, we had a pretty good year in terms of algal biomass, and we had a really good year with toxins. I'll show you the toxin graphic here in a second. But this is just the biomass, and you can see we're in that last spike. We had a little bit of rain over the course of the last couple of weeks, 2 or 3 days. Some of that rain made it into the lake, not a huge amount, and that's just a testament to how dry it's been. Most of that water got kind of sucked up by the soils that were so parched. But a little bit of that did get into the lake, and what we're seeing right now is we're seeing that last uptick of algae. We see it this time of year every single fall, and it should drop off pretty quickly. Perhaps not next week, but definitely by the end of October, we'll be starting this sort of downward slide. What's kind of interesting is when you look around the lake, like it's not a surprise that you can see the algal bloom right now, and you can see that it's different than it's been all summer long. What's interesting right now is we don't seem to have the monoculture of planktothrix that we've had all year long. In some of the channels and some of the sort of backwater areas, you're going to notice the sort of spilled paint. It almost looks like somebody poured paint on the water. If you see that, that's usually an indicator that what you're looking at is microcystis. Planktothrix is a type of blue-green algae that disperses kind of throughout the water column fairly evenly. Microcystis is a blue-green algae that, especially when it starts to die or compete with itself, it forms these sort of surface scums that look almost plasticky. Almost, again, it just looks like spilled green paint. So you'll see that in some of the backwater areas. You may also see in some of the backwater areas, you may see some water that looks like somebody sprinkled tiny grass clippings, like a lawnmower or something, tiny grass clippings on the surface of the water. If you see millions of tiny grass clippings on the surface of the water, that's usually an indicator of another species called a phamazamenon. That's something we've seen in the past before. It's not typical, neither of those taxa are typical for this time of year. What's typical is the monoculture of planktothrix. And so we're seeing, again, an uptick in a couple of other species of cyanos. Without looking at all of the data and putting it through all the models, it's difficult to tell the mechanism of why that might be, but the conditions of the lake drive all of this. And so what conditions has the lake experienced this year? Just enormous drought. And it has not gotten a lot of stream flow. And so that's almost undoubtedly part of this equation. Toxin-wise, we've done extremely well. Total microcystin levels, you can see the arrow. This was updated just a couple of days ago. So this is this week's data. But we're low. We're extremely low in terms of total microcystin. Unfortunately, some of these other taxa algae can produce other sorts of algal toxins. It's possible that some of those toxins are being produced in some of the channels where you see the sort of prolific blooms of these other taxa. But total microcystin, this is where we are. We've had a really, really good year. We started off the year, January to maybe March, we started off kind of in sync with the historical average, and then since that point we've only had a couple of little upticks. And the majority of the year, with the exception of 2 weeks, we've been below the World Health Organization's revised microcystin contact limit. Remember, the state of Ohio sets it at 8, sort of universally for everything. It's the number's 8, and then the World Health has different categories. Are you drinking the water? Are you playing in the water? Are you young? Are you not? There's all sorts of little cutoffs and little bins, but the sort of adult recreational limit is sitting right there at 24. That's the one that used to be 20. That's been edited. So the dotted line on this graphic that you've seen before has been moved up a little bit, and you can see we've got 3 weeks where we were over, but when we were over, it was just barely. So we had a phenomenal year. You can see the blank space between the historical average, the dotted line, and then the solid line. That blank space represents improvement. That void is a great thing. That's what we're looking for.